August 6th, 2025, the peaceful skies over Samir, just 15 miles from the NATO border, suddenly burst into flames. Out of the eastern horizon came one of Russia's most expensive and carefully planned strikes of the war. 3 Iskander ballistic missiles paired with a swarm of 53 suicide drones. The combined package, valued at more than $120 million, had 1 day. If successful, over 4,000 troops, along with vast fuel reserves and critical command systems, would have been obliterated within minutes. The drones hugged the treetops, roaring forward at 100 miles per hour, while the Iskander warheads screamed down from the stratosphere at 6 times the speed of sound. It looked unstoppable, a storm of fire aimed at the very heart of Ukraine's defenses. But Ukraine had prepared. Hidden radar arrays tracked every trajectory, part of a battle plan weeks in the making. As the missiles closed in, Ukraine's defenses came alive. Bayonet drone interceptors clawed into the sky, diving straight into the incoming UAV swarm. From the ground, Patriot PAC-3 launchers lit up, their interceptors streaking upward to meet the falling warheads. At that moment, as explosions rippled across the horizon, a Ukrainian general issued a counterattack order bold enough to surprise even NATO commanders. Could Ukraine really have stopped the Russian attack? And what was the bold counterattack plan that shocked NATO? Stay tuned because you're about to find out. 6:15 a.m., August 6th, 2025. The skies above western Ukraine, near the town of Yavoriv, less than 15 miles from the Polish and NATO border, erupted with the roar of engines and distant thunder. Russia had escalated its offensive, targeting one of Ukraine's most strategic installations, a training and logistics hub where thousands of soldiers gathered in preparation for the coming counteroffensive. Within 3 minutes, Ukrainian radar detected the storm. 53 suicide drones launched from 3 separate directions: southern Belarus, Russia's Bryansk region, and the occupied territories of Donetsk. Flying at an average speed of 120 miles per hour and skimming only 200 to 300 feet above the ground, they were designed to slip beneath radar coverage. At the same time, from mobile launchers in Kursk, 3 short-range Iskander ballistic missiles streaked into the sky, each carrying a half-ton warhead of high explosive, programmed to slam into Yavoriv base. For a moment, it seemed unstoppable. Yet within 90 seconds of detection, Ukraine unleashed its answer. Bayonet interceptors, next-generation combat drones built specifically for aerial duels, lifted off in pairs. They dove into the Russian swarm with ruthless precision, ramming at high speed and detonating directional charges that shredded their targets. One after another, fireballs blossomed in the early dawn. In less than 5 minutes, all 53 Russian drones were reduced to falling debris, none reaching Ukrainian lines. But the threat was not over. High above, the 3 Iskander warheads plunged toward their mark. On the ground, Patriot PAC-3 launchers came to life. 3 interceptors screamed skyward, leaving white scars across the blue. Seconds later, thunderclaps tore the heavens as all 3 incoming missiles were obliterated at 25,000 feet, their flaming wreckage scattering harmlessly over empty fields. Inside the underground command post, the Ukrainian general overseeing the defense stood firm, his words broadcast across the network. "We are not merely defending, we will turn every Russian attack into their own graveyard." Russia's opening strike, intended to annihilate, had instead become the first proof that Ukraine's defensive power had been utterly transformed. If you were the supreme leader of Ukraine, would you order an immediate large-scale counterattack? The question hung over the battlefield like smoke after fire. The answer, however, was not what anyone expected. Here's what one Ukrainian general had to say. By August 7th, 2025, at 2 a.m., the Ukrainian High Command made a decision that stunned even their own frontline units. Instead of launching the massive counteroffensive many had expected, they chose something older, simpler, and far more insidious: guerrilla warfare. The order delivered to scattered battalions was blunt: fight without needing to win. Small squads of 3 to 5 men slipped across enemy lines under cover of night. Their weapons were not heavy armor or precision artillery, but silenced rifles, light anti-tank rockets, and a handful of explosives stuffed into worn backpacks. Their objective was not to conquer ground, but to paralyze the enemy's nerves. The first raid came swiftly. Near Novovolinsk, a Russian convoy of 12 fuel trucks rumbled along a forest road. 90 seconds later, 3 of them burned like torches. The attackers already vanished into the trees. At dawn, another strike shattered a communications hub, silencing Russian radios for hours. These were not battles. They were psychological daggers, twisting deeper with every hour. Every few hours, somewhere along the Western Front, an explosion thundered. A sniper shot, cracked, or a patrol simply disappeared. Russian soldiers began to dread the silence between engagements more than the firefights themselves. By the 7th day, paranoia had spread like disease. Drone feeds captured platoons refusing to leave trenches at night, others firing blindly into darkness, wasting ammunition on shadows. Ukrainian intelligence estimated that 60% of Russia's combat effectiveness in the sector had been neutralized, not through frontal clashes, but through exhaustion, confusion, and fear. Russia, with all its firepower, suddenly found itself unable to control the battlefield. After small battles will come a full-scale offensive. The guerrilla raids were only the beginning, a prelude to the storm now gathering over the horizon. Next will be the real power of the Ukrainian army. Support us by liking and subscribing to the channel. By August 13th, 2025, at 5:40 a.m., after a relentless week of guerrilla strikes, the signal came from Kiev. The president of Ukraine authorized a full-scale counteroffensive. Within minutes, the skies over western Ukraine buzzed with an unfamiliar sound. From hidden dirt strips, abandoned highways, and converted farmland, 300 suicide drones lifted up, rising in each drone weighed less than 55 pounds, carried a 15-pound explosive charge, and was guided by little more than a cheap GPS unit and a small commercial camera. Their frames were 3D printed overnight, powered by lithium batteries pulled straight from warehouses and run on processors no more advanced than those in a household laptop. They were crude, fragile, and laughably cheap. But in numbers, they became unstoppable. Their target, a Russian stronghold near Samir, housing 2,000 soldiers, armored vehicles, and sprawling supply depots. As the swarm descended, Russian anti-air batteries roared to life. Missiles worth millions of dollars each streaked upward, blasting drones apart. But for every one destroyed, 5 more pushed through. Fuel depots erupted like volcanoes. Artillery pits vanished in curtains of smoke. A row of T-72 tanks became twisted wreckage in seconds. Then disaster nearly struck. A cluster of 5 Ukrainian drones, their GPS receivers jammed by Russian electronic warfare, veered off course. Instead of plunging into Russian lines, they turned toward a forward Ukrainian artillery battery, preparing to fire. Had they hit, 120 soldiers and 6 howitzers would have been obliterated. At the last second, Ukraine's ECC teams activated. Portable frequency hopping transmitters seized back control, flooding the drones with new coordinates. In a heartbeat, the wayward machines swung around and dove instead into a Russian ammunition depot. The resulting blast sent a fireball rising 20 meters high, saving the Ukrainian artillery and turning near disaster into triumph. As the smoke billowed from burning depots, Phase 2 of the counteroffensive began. 30 self-propelled artillery pieces rolled into firing positions, their barrels elevating in unison. Guided by real-time reconnaissance from overhead drones, they unleashed a barrage of precision shells that tore through what remained of Russian armor. Each impact carved craters, scattering steel and bodies across the field. Above them, 20 dedicated reconnaissance UAVs orbited high, streaming live imagery back to command posts. Their role was twofold: to identify fresh targets and to guide the second wave of hunter-killer drones. These smaller UAVs, each fitted with cameras, operated like predators. They scanned the battlefield, locked onto Russian squads scrambling for cover, and then dove with terrifying accuracy. Caught in open trenches and shattered buildings, Russian soldiers had nowhere left to hide. Explosions erupted across the base in rapid succession, erasing groups of men in seconds. Panic spread through the survivors, their formations disintegrating under invisible eyes in the sky. By the time the shelling ceased, the once formidable Russian garrison was little more than a burning ruin. Ukraine had turned improvisation and cheap technology into a weapon of absolute destruction. Are you there? The war is not over. The enemy is still there, hiding among the ruins and forests. The drone storm has broken their lines, but the fight must continue. Watch as Ukraine completely wipes out the surviving soldiers in the next phase of the assault. By August 14, 2025, at 6:30 a.m., the battlefield near Samir was a wasteland of smoke, scorched craters, and twisted steel. Black plumes rose into the sky, the acrid smell of burning fuel still hanging heavy in the morning air. The drone swarms had shattered the Russian base, but the mission was not over. To reclaim territory, boots on the ground were required. The order was clear: advance and cleanse. From camouflage positions, 10 modernized T-64 tanks roared forward, their engines growling like metal beasts. Each had been upgraded with advanced fire control systems, allowing pinpoint fire guided by overhead UAV coordinates. Their 125mm cannons thundered, blasting through Russian bunkers, machine gun nests, and tree-lined defenses that drones could not reach. Every shot collapsed another strong point. Close behind, 15 armored trucks sped across the ruined fields, carrying 550 elite Ukrainian infantrymen. These were hardened special operations troops, trained to move like shadows through chaos. Once inside the broken perimeter, they dismounted swiftly, splitting into squads that spread across the smoldering base. Their mission was not conquest alone, but eradication. With UAVs still circling above, infantry squads advanced block by block, rooting out survivors, securing caches, and tightening the noose around the last defenders. For Russia, escape was no longer possible. Their mission: eliminate resistance and capture any valuable intelligence. Overhead, miniature quadcopter drones no larger than a backpack hovered, their infrared cameras sweeping across the rubble. Each heat signature that flickered on their screens revealed Russian soldiers hiding beneath collapsed walls or dugouts. The data streamed instantly to Ukrainian squads below, who closed in without hesitation. The cleansing of the base became a seamless partnership between man and machine. Infantrymen advanced with calm precision, guided by real-time drone feeds. When a signal flared on the tablet of a squad leader, grenades were tossed into dark holes, rifles cracked in short bursts, and silence followed. Resistance still lingered. Heavy machine guns for a desperate stand. Before they could coordinate, a swarm of loitering mini-drones descended like hawks. Each carried a small explosive charge. Within seconds, the entire building erupted in fire, collapsing into rubble. Others tried to flee. Along the forest edge to the west, scattered groups of Russians attempted to slip away under cover of smoke. UAVs tracked them relentlessly, marking coordinates for encircling infantry. Within an hour, those groups were either wiped out or forced to surrender. By noon, nearly 300 Russian soldiers had laid down their weapons. The Ukrainian flag was raised once more over the shattered base. For Ukraine, this was more than reclaiming ground. It was proof that intelligence, persistence, and precision could humble a force that once seemed invincible. The final tactics to complete the recapture of this territory will be revealed shortly. Stay ready for Ukraine's ultimate strike. At dawn on August 15, 2025, silence over the reclaimed Ukrainian base near Samir was shattered by a new threat. Radar operators detected fast-moving signatures sweeping in from the east. 10 Russian fighter jets, a mix of Su-34 strike bombers and Su-35 air superiority fighters, slicing through the morning sky at nearly 600 miles per hour. Each carried precision-guided bombs, enough destructive power to level entire buildings in a single pass. Moscow's intent was unmistakable: erase the Ukrainian victory, bury the base under fire, and avenge the humiliation of defeat. Sirens wailed across the Ukrainian positions. Soldiers dove into bunkers as the jets closed the distance, their silhouettes black against the orange dawn. At 15 miles out, the Russian pilots armed their payloads. For a heartbeat, it seemed inevitable that Ukraine's hard-won triumph would be reduced to ashes. But Ukraine had anticipated such retaliation. During the night, mobile batteries of Patriot PAC-3 systems had been redeployed around the base, concealed among fields and tree lines. As the jets entered the kill zone, Ukrainian commanders gave the order. From hidden launchers, 7 Patriot missiles ignited, streaking into the sky with trails of fire. Within seconds, they locked onto their targets. A Su-34 vanished in a fireball at 20,000 feet. Another jet, its wings shredded by shrapnel, spiraled downward before crashing into the forest. In less than 2 minutes, 7 Russian aircraft were annihilated. The 3 survivors pressed on, but panic overtook discipline. Warning lights flashed across their cockpits as near misses ripped through fuselages. One by one, they jettisoned their bombs harmlessly into empty fields and turned back toward Russian airspace. The counterstrike had failed. On the ground, Ukrainian troops erupted in cheers, their cries echoing across the smoking battlefield. The Patriot crews, calm and disciplined, simply reloaded, knowing more waves could come. For Russia, the result was catastrophic. The loss of advanced jets worth hundreds of millions of dollars and the shattering of their aura of air dominance. In less than 72 hours, Moscow had transformed from attacker to humiliated aggressor. Ukraine had defended, outmaneuvered, and counterattacked with precision, proving that even a superpower could be defeated through intelligence, courage, and adaptability. The battle for Western Ukraine in August 2025 will be remembered not only for its scale, but for its symbolism. Russia unleashed everything it could muster: swarms of suicide drones, short-range ballistic missiles, and some of its most advanced fighter jets. Each assault was meant to crush a single Ukrainian base near Samir. Yet at every stage, the spearhead was broken. Ukraine's victory was not born from overwhelming firepower, but from discipline, ingenuity, and adaptability. Radar networks, bayonet interceptors, and Patriot missiles formed the first shield. Guerrilla raids then hollowed out Russian morale, turning paranoia into paralysis. Finally, a counteroffensive built on cheap technology, 3D printed drones, improvised systems, and relentless coordination overwhelmed Russia's costly defenses and flipped the battlefield. The lesson was clear. In modern war, victory is not always determined by massive armies or expensive arsenals. Sometimes it belongs to small squads striking at the right moment, to drones built in workshops within a single day, to soldiers who refuse to break under pressure. For Russia, the campaign ended in wreckage, shattered morale, and the collapse of its aura of invincibility. For Ukraine, it marked the transformation from survival to mastery. It was rewriting the art of war. Your support means everything. Subscribe now and stay with us as we bring you the frontline stories the world needs to hear. Stories of courage, sacrifice, and resilience.